Well, good day everyone. I am Vijay from IDEC Controls India Private Limited. So in this video tutorial, we'll be looking into the understanding of laser scanner, its hardware, and its basic setting with the help of SLS Project Designer. So before proceeding into the presentation or into the understanding of the hardware's wiring and the basic settings, so let us look into the final result, how it looks like. So here you can observe that I have opened two different windows parallelly. One is SLS Project Designer, where we can see the area. There are three different areas here: protection zone, warning zone 1 and warning zone 2. So I have already pre-wired it with the PLC. So here we'll get a feedback signals in it. So I'll go to monitor and I'll show it to you. So let us assume that I'm trying to interfere the area. So right now warning zone 1, 2 and the OSST, that is protection zones, are in green color, that is on state. So if I'm trying to interfere, then if I'm trying to enter the area, then the signals will change its state. And the feedbacks, I'm taking it here, right? Warning zone 1 and 2, OSST 1 and 2. So right now I'm trying to interfere with my hand. So I have come to an area of warning zone 1, then warning zone 2, and finally the protection zone, right? So let us look into how it happens, how the settings has to be done, right? So without any delay, we'll just move on to the presentation of understanding the hardware first and the basic settings. So these are the contents. First we'll understand the hardware, then we'll move on to the wiring part. Then we'll open a new SLS Designer and create a new project. I'll try to explain it in the presentation first before proceeding to the practicals. Then uploading and downloading procedures to the SE2L. Then we'll be looking at the practicals here. Practical will be designing two area patterns. Hardware point of view, there are two different models in SE2L laser scanner. So one which comes with cable, one which comes with a cable connector. So additionally we have to procure a connector cable so as to get the wiring output. Then this SE2L also supports Ethernet cable, so additionally we have to procure Ethernet cable. So model numbers are given for each and every specific material. Then just in case if the wire is not sufficient, this multi-core wire is not sufficient, so we can expand with the help of the same wire. So it comes in 10 and 20 meters. For the PC communication part, either we can go with Ethernet communication or micro USB cable as well. Then from the mounting perspective, there are different kinds of brackets which are available. So based on the application, based on the requirement or installations, so we can try and select either of the 4 mounting brackets. The additional for protections, we can go with cover bracket, and optionally they have given a window. So let's say this window has been damaged and we can try and replace with the help of additional part cover. So from the outer point of view, just to understand, so it's an optical window where basically there is a small motor which is been installed inside it, which rotates 360 degrees at 2000 RPM. Then there is a SD card slot for writing the parameters into the SE2L laser scanner. Then there is an LED section and a display section as well, where we can try and see the signals, output signals as well as the input signals. Then in the 7-segment display here, we can try and see what kind of which area pattern is selected, or whether we are in the installation mode or a monitor mode, or if there is any error, so we can see all these displays over here. Then micro USB for the PC communication, we can use this. Housing is basically IP65. Then for the Ethernet cable, we can use this port. Cable has been defined in the previous slide. Then so in this cable there are various inputs and outputs, as well as the power supply with which we have to make the laser scanner on. Let us move on to the indicators part. So here in this indicators, we have 3 on the left side, 3 on the right side with the 7-segment display. So namings are given here. So OSSD signal 1 and 2, OSSD signal 3 and 4 on left and right. So basically these signals status is also being shown here. Green means on, off means red. So off means whenever there is a detection of an object, so this will glow as red color. Otherwise it will be in green color. Similarly, denotions are given for warning zone 1 and 2 as well as interlock 1 and 2. Here 7-segment display can also be inverted. That means we can even also see if it is 2-0 here, we can even see 2-0 in the inverted format. Then with respect to Ethernet connector, so on the back side you might find this type of connector with which we can try and connect a cable. The cable number has been provided previously in the previous slides, where these are the IP addresses, and even if we'd like to reset the IP address, we can do it with the help of SLS Project Designer software, or as well as there's a small notch over here. So these are the steps which are provided. With the help of these steps, we can try and reset, or we can try and initialize the IP addresses. So coming to the connectors, just to understand pins, so pin numbers are provided here. If you are trying to view from the SE2L's point of view, pin point of view, so this is the numbering for that. If you are trying to look from the cable point of view, so these are the pin numbers which have been provided. So pin numbers, the denotions, which pin means what, that is provided in the next couple of slides. So here is the pin denotion. It means pin number 1 means 24 volts, pin number 2 is 0 volts. So to supply power to the laser scanner, so we have to use pin number 1 and 2 as 24 and 0 volt. We have to supply it to them. So respectively functions, whether that pin is an input or output, it's been provided clearly here. What kind of signals each pin represent, that is provided here. That means OSSD 1 and 2. So these are protection outputs. Warning zone 1 and 2. So these are also warning zones outputs. So similarly, to select the area pattern, we have input A, input B, C, D, and E. So similarly, we can use a single input for multiple uses. That means if we are not trying to use all the inputs, so we can try the other functionalities as well. With respect to color coding, that means as it is a multi-core cable, so every pin number, every cable which is coming out from the pin usually has a color. So here in this table we can see 1 represents brown, 2 represents blue, 3 represents red. So this list goes on. So it's easy to identify the color codings. Let's say if you're not able to understand what kind of pin that number is, so with the help of color coding itself, we can try and do the wiring. So to make it simple, so pin 1 and 2 are for power supplies, to supply power to the SE2L. These are the input terminals 7 to 18, all are inputs. So for the input wiring, we have to do a PNP type. That means positive input has to be supplied to the inputs. So all these inputs what are been there, that means purple, gray, or maybe with respect to descriptions of it, means area switching A and B, C, D. So whatever that might be, input might be. So we have to supply positive, that means 24 volts to the input to make it on. Right. So with respect to outputs, so these are the pin numbers and these are the color codings of that. So there are 6 outputs: protection zone 1 and 2, then warning zone 1 and 2, or even protection zone 3 and 4. With respect to muting or reset, so there are 2 different signals here. So these are the outputs which we need to take into a PLC or into a controller. Then wiring for the output goes on in this way. For OSSDs and warning zones, So we have to basically internally MOSFETs are used, so we'll get a positive output. Then with respect to the remaining two signals, so even here we'll get a positive output. So no common has to be supplied here. So 24 volts which we are supplying to the to power on the SE2L, that itself is supplied internally to these circuits. So we have to make sure that let's say for controller like PLC, if you're trying to supply 24 volts, so it's the same 24 volts, the same power supply has to be provided to SE2L as well, to make it input and outputs common to both laser scanner as well as the PLC, right? Or if you're going with two power supplies, then we have to make sure that grounds are shorted. So this is an example of understanding how area patterns are selected with respect to each mode. That means if you're going with standard mode, then with respect to protection zone, there are two protection zones that can be done to the max. Otherwise, we can go with one protection zone and two warning zones, right? So this is the meaning of that. So the wiring here is just to understand that all 32 patterns are being used. I'll let you know what the 32 patterns means as well. So for all 32 patterns, we have to consider all the inputs. That means input A, B, C, D, and E. So in underscore A bar is actually a negation of A. So if in A is on, in A bar should be off condition. So double confirmation is taken over here just to make sure that the input is properly been switched on. And from the relay side, since it is getting we are getting an output of positive, so positive is supplied to a relay, and negative at the other end of the coil will be supplying negative 0 volt, right? Similarly, it happens when warning as well as the other signals. So this is the area pattern how we need to select. We can design an areas of up to 32 altogether, but this is not the case for all these modes. So as I said you, with respect to each mode, maximum area pattern will change, right? So if you're going with standard mode, in that case we can have 32 area patterns. If you're going with external device monitoring mode, so here we'll have a 16. Okay. If you are trying to use muting function, so maximum area pattern we can go up to 4. Okay. If you are considering one protection zone and two warning zones. So this is how we need to do the programming. If we are having a controller, in that case we have to switch the inputs in such a way. Let's assume that it will be difficult to understand all 32 area patterns. So let us understand with one input. So if we are considering one input, maximum 2 area patterns can be considered because we are just considering in A, that means only one input, and its negation, that is in underscore A bar. So to get to area number 1, to make area number 1 on, then in A should be in on condition and in A bar should be in off condition. For area number 2, in A should be off and in A bar should be in on condition. So here it clearly states that if A is on, A bar should be off. So you can observe the same in all the principles of areas over here, even if you're considering 2 input pattern. So even in this 2 inputs means maximum of 4 areas. So just assume in a BCD format, if you're considering 2 inputs, so in BCD it happens in such a way that 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. So there are 4 patterns what we can select. So similarly what we can consider in that same way for understanding. So coming to the SLS project designer, that's the configuration tool, or we can say software, to design the patterns and to do the settings for the laser scanner. So to create a project, first of all, we have to open SLS designer. So once we have done all the settings and all, there are 2 different ways how we can dump the backup into the laser scanner. The first way is using the USB cable, and the second way using the SD card. So we'll look both the configurations at the end. So first of all, let's say we are trying to create a new project. So before creating a new project, first of all, we need to open the SLS Project Designer. So, and then once it is opened, so we have to check the version of the serial number version of the SLS Designer. So it is been provided on the nameplate. So at the end, you'll find alphabet. So based on the alphabet, we can understand what kind of firmware is installed into the laser scanner. So we can select that, as well as we have to select what kind of project we are trying to do. That means based on the application, we can select the necessary option here. So once we select, let's say, general with 70 mm detection, so in that case only one area pattern can be designed. If you're trying to select general with 30 mm detection, it means higher sensitivity, so in that case we can go with 32 area pattern. So based on that, area patterns will differ, and functions also will differ. So we can click on connect. So once we click on connect, it actually connects. And even though if it is not connected, if you are trying to create a dummy program without connecting it to laser scanner, even in that case we can try and configure the settings. So let us assume after that we the immediate window which will be opened is this one. So here we have to select general, or general will be by default be viewed after creation of new project. So here we can type in the necessary product identity or username as per our need. Then IP address settings are needed when the Ethernet cable is used. Then after that we'll click on function to select the necessary functions. So we'll make it simple initially. So we'll be doing only the setting part, the general setting part. Let's say if you're having an additional functionalities that has to be done, like external device monitoring or interlock or maybe muting functions. So based on that, we have to checkbox each and every function, and we have to do each and every settings according to the functionality here. So here for the basic settings, I'm trying to utilize the minimum detection width of 30 mm, that is as minimum as that. So as the width increases, the distance also gets increased. That means if a small object of 30 mm has to be detected, so the protection zone can go up to a maximum of 1.8 meters. Let's say an object of 70 mm or 150 mm has to be detected, so the protection zone can go up to 5 meters. So based upon the application, based upon what kind of object we are trying to detect, what's the width of the object, protection zone distance also gets varied. Then on the bottom side, area active areas we can select as per the functionalities what we're trying to select, right? And based on that, let's say if I'm trying to select 2 area patterns, so only in A is activated here. Let's say I'm going with more than 2. So if you are going more than 2, 3 or 4, so in underscore B will also appear here. Then for area input delays also we'll have multiple options of timers, so we can drop down and select it according to our need. Then the next step is after doing the functionalities, we'll move on to the area, where we'll try and design the areas as per our requirement. So here to design, we have tools on the right side. So we have to go to each and every zone. That means first we'll go to protection zone, and we'll be designing the protection zone with the help of circle or square or pentagon or even the line. We can do the design over here. Then for each and every zone, we'll be selecting each zone and we'll be designing that area. And to perform teaching, we can do 2 types of drawing here, either with the help of these drawing tools, or we have a dedicated functionality called as teach. So once we click on this small icon here, this tab also gets activated, and there is a functionality called as start. There's a button called as start. Once we click on that, recording gets started. So I'll try and show in the practicals how it can be done. Then once the areas have been set, then it is just as a confirmation. each and every steps can be viewed here. In general, what settings we have done, we'll just cross verify everything. Function, what settings we have done in function, so that values will come here. We just need to cross verify. In area, we'll just try and see what kind of areas we have designed, so whether they are according to our need or not, according to our requirement or not. So based on that, we'll just go to each and every section, and finally we will go to save to SD card or transfer to SE2L. So as I said to you, there are two types of writing backup into SE2L. One is with the help of the USB cable. So for the USB cable, first of all, we need to do the connection settings. So we need to click on this object. Before that, yes, COM settings can also be selected. Then once we are clicking on this, by default it will ask for password. The default password here is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 if it is not changed by the user. After logging in, you will get an option of transfer to sensor. This this button gets activated, so you can click on that. So once it is done, once the transfer has been done, if everything is successful, then it will show as transmission succeeded. Means writing the backup into the SE2L is successful. The other way of writing backup into SE2L is via SD card. So the SD card which we usually use is micro SD card, and the limitations is still 16 GB. So for writing a backup into SD card, we do not require SLS designer to be connected to SE2L. Once you do that, once you do all the configurations and all, usually it shows the button called as save to SD card. Once you click on it, it will show this specific window wherein we need to enter or key in the serial number of the SE2L what we're trying to connect with, as well as the password. Let's see if there is any password which is done previously in the SE2L. The same password has to be entered here. If it is by default, if it's a new SE2L, then the by default password is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 that we have to enter here. So these two are mandatory items. Then once we do that, we can click on save. Once we do that, our window will open to where we have to save this file to. So obviously it's an SD card. Then once we do that, we have to remove the SD card from the PC, and we have to connect it to the SE2L. Once we do that, it might show F1 so that it is starting, and immediately it has to show F3, so that F3 is basically downloading configuration, as well as it will check for the serial number and the passwords. Let's say if it is not showing F3 or F4, whatever, in that case we just need to recycle the power. That means power off and on once again for the SE2L, and once you do that, it will show F3. Once after completion, it will show F4, and so this confirms that backup is written into the SE2L. After completion, we have to remove the SD card. Once we remove the SD card, it will show F5, and just few seconds it will show 00. That means it is restarting the SE2L. So we don't need to power recycle here. It will recycle the power by itself. To read the backup, it's quite easy. Just open the SE2L, the SLS project designer first, then check the version number from here, from the identification that alphabet which is given on the serial number. So after doing it, just click on connect. So once it is connected, either you can go to file and save automatically, or we have to, or better, you can go to configuration and click the password. If you know the password, then it is fine. You can click on password and go to save, and you can save the file. The other way is you can straight away, without going to configuration, also we can try and go to a file and save the backup. Because since, let's say, if you are not able to get the password, there are a few cases that we don't know the password and how to take the backup. So in that case, just take the backup first, and whoever designed the project, you can send the backup to them. So they will open and send it back to you. So let us move into the practical part. First, for understanding, so I have taken a practical of an active area patterns. with two areas. So we'll be designing, we'll take the same areas what we are designed in the previous slides. Maybe I already have a pattern design. So I'll show you how to design the pattern. So before that, wiring has to be done. So initially we have to supply 24 and 0 volts with the help of blue and brown wire. Then for the input output signals, outputs such as OSST 1, 2, warning zone 1 and 2 has to be supplied to a PLC, because I'm considering a PLC of FT1A. It's an IDEC PLC. FT1A is C2L touchscreen PLC. So where input is sync and output is a relay type. So I can provide anything as a common to the relay. That's the advantage what I have with this specific PLC. So I have considered it. So 24, so I have supplied 24 volts to the common of output, and inputs I straight away supplied OSST 1, 2, warning zone 1 and 2 straight away to the inputs, because my input is a sync type. That means negative. Then with respect to the inputs of SE2L, that means laser scanner, I just there are only two inputs, in A and in A inverse. So both are supplied through a relay. So the pattern here is, if the relay is on, one input will be in on state, the other input will be in off state. So that is how the pattern works. So to switch to go to area number 1, in A should be on, inverse of in A should be off. For area number 2, in A should be off and in A inverse should be in on condition. So according to that, I have done the wiring, NONC, SPDT. I've taken SPDT relay. So to the coil, I've connected to the output of PLC, that is Q0, right? So from the programming point of view, I have done a small programming where I've taken the inputs to check the condition of the area. That means if all inputs are on, that means all areas are fine. That means all okay. If warning zone goes to off mode, that means it's warning zone 1, remaining are fine. Warning zone 1 and 2, that means if I'm going to warning zone 2, so warning zone 1 and 2, both inputs will go to off mode. These inputs are with respect to PLC. With respect to the laser scanner, those are outputs, right? So I have considered two areas here, area number 1 and area number 2. So for area number 1 and 2 switching, I have considered M100. So if M100 is off, that means it's area number 1. If M100 is on, then it means area number 2. So in the touchscreen, it's a touchscreen PLC. So in the touchscreen, I have designed a small selector switch over here just to switch from area number 1 and 2. Then small indication just to show the status of the pattern, that means the area, whether it's in warning zone number 1, 2 or protection zone, or no object is sensed. So based on that, I have designed a small display, right? So before going to muting function, I will open the project once. We will look into the designing of the project. So I'll try and disconnect it initially. We'll open SLS Designer once again. SLS Project Designer. SD1. So right now we are in area number 2. So to save the project, you can straight away go to File and save the project. So here on the desktop, I'll try and save the project name as video backup 1. Okay. So whatever settings that are there in the SLS SE2L, so those are actually saved. If you would like to look into the configuration part, I mean what kind of settings have been done, so in that case we have to go to configuration. You have to click on configuration. Yes, you want to read the settings from this? Definitely yes. So last password, as I said, the default password is 1234, 5, 6, 7, 8. Click OK. So once I've clicked OK, in SE2L, in the display you can find 3 and 3. So 33. So basically, once it comes to 33, that is we are in the configuration mode, not in the monitoring mode. So once we are in monitoring configuration mode, SE2L will not function. So here previously it was, I have already done few settings here. That means test and test. So these are the names which I have provided. Then we'll move on to the function part. So where one is selected is settings. The other in settings I have considered 50 mm. So we can select as per our need. So I have selected two active areas. That means in A and in A inverse has been selected. So if I'm not using muting function, so this is how it looks like. And if I'm trying to use muting function, so I need to select on muting and the signals will come automatically here, right? So right now we'll not consider muting here, considering 2 and minimum seconds minimum time delay with operation mode as 1 protection and 2 warning zones. So the other operation mode is we can go with 2 protection zones as well. Right now we'll consider protection zone 1 and warning zone 1 and 2. So after doing the settings, we'll move on to the area. So as we have selected 2 areas over there, so we'll get 2 different settings here. So we'll not get 3 or 4. So for that we have to go to function and we have to increase the areas. Here in area, we can design the areas in 2 different ways. One with the help of the right side navigation pane or the help window or the tools what are being provided here, or we can even click on teach. So if you click on teach, so let us move to area number pattern number 2. So pattern number 2 I have designed not in a good way. So we'll try and delete this pattern, right? Then I'll go to teaching. So once if I go to teaching and click on start, so right now you can see this is how the area looks like. That means, let's say if I'm trying to move my hand here and there. Now if you see in the protection zone, this pink color area it has come under protection zone. So I'll try and bring an object nearer to the SE2L. So now you can see there is an object here. I'll try and reteach it once again. Okay, so have you observed there is one area which has been created here. So this is called as teaching method. The other methodology is just click here and click on delete. The other methodology is using these tools. So let us assume I'm taking a circle from the center I've considered. I've gone to center and I've taken an area till here. Let us take this as protection zone. Then I'll go to warning zone. I'll create a square. This as warning zone 1 and I'll take square once again. This is warning zone 2. So let us, we have already considered this. We'll not disturb this area. We have designed a new area pattern for area number 2. So after doing this, we'll go to confirm. And here we have to check each and every aspect. That means general, function, area, whatever setting we have done, we will try and recheck each and every settings and all. So once 2 areas has been designed, so we'll try and recheck whether they're according to our settings or not. So once everything is checked, then straight away you can click on transmit to sensor. So once we do it, it is basically written. It is going to write the backup into the SE2L. So once all have been successful, you'll get a small window stating that transmission has been succeeded. Now click on OK. And yeah, again we have to reconnect it. Just select the version and go to connect, right? So it is going to monitor mode now. So you can check the area number pattern we didn't change. It is as per the backup whatever that is there in the SE2L. Whereas to change it to pattern number 2, and I have already designed this in the FT1A PLC. So in this video tutorial, we'll concentrate only on SLS Project Designer. So beforehand, I have already designed the screen. So area patterns for that I have designed these bits M100 and D101. So in the PLC program inside this PLC, so I have designed M100. As of now, it is in off state. That means area pattern number 1 is selected. If it is in on state, pattern number 2 will be selected, right? Then all the inputs I have considered. If it is in off state, it means pattern number 1. If it is in on state, pattern number 2. So based on that, I have taken each and every input here. So let us, since it is in pattern number 1, so I'll bring an object nearer to it. So you can see there is a warning zone. That means warning zone has come off. So I'll go to second warning zone. So both the warning zones are in off mode now. Okay. And OSST, I'm not in the protection zone. So these two are in on state. So as soon as I go to protection zone, this will come to off state. That means the color here will change to red. Right? So you can observe here. Then let us switch the area pattern. So in the HMI, I have the selected switch, right? I'm clicking on it. So M100 is on. The pattern is shifted here. So you can check the pattern here. And let's say I am moving an object. Okay. This is warning zone 1, warning zone 2, and protection zone. Right, so this is how we have to view. If you would like to take a report of it, the complete parameters and all, you can straight away click on report and click on the output PDF. So we'll get all the settings here as well. Okay, then we'll shift to monitor once again. So this is the end of this specific video presentation. So if you have any other such requirements with respect to any other product in IDEC, please enter your inputs in the comment window. So it will be very much helpful. And thank you very much. See you in the next.